Welcome to Football Talking News. Today we are going to be the GMs of the NFC North, right? I'm right. Anyways, I think I'm right. And we are going to start with. I'm going to pick a random. The Packers. So I guess that's Austin. Austin is the GM of the Packers today, and he's going to run us through their free agency targets and who they might lose.
So we have 0 to 15 mil in cap space, depending with how it sits right now. So we're gonna have to restructure some contracts. Aaron Donald, David Bakhtiari, bigger contracts like that.
Did you say Aaron Donald?
I
I think you mean Aaron G.
I think you meant Aaron Jack.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Packers GM. Sorry.
We need to restructure some of the bigger contracts and either make them signing bonuses or more incentive based. We've been to the NFC Championship the past 2 years in a row. One second.
You guys gonna get over that hump?
I mean, as a fellow GM in the division, I guess I need to throw some shade at Green Bay. So, I mean, maybe spending their first round pick this year on a quarterback while they had a very efficient Aaron Rodgers still on the roster might not have been their best draft position, but that could just be me throwing shade as a divisional rival.
Yeah. Stop throwing shade, Mr. Vikings GM.
That's Mr. Spielman, Mr. Rick Spielman. I had to look at my name, but I found
All right,
it.
Mr. Spielman. I don't even know who I am. Anyways, Austin, go ahead.
I looked it up after the AFC East. I'm like, I should know who I actually am.
We're gonna need to restructure some of the bigger contracts, like I was talking about. But even doing that, we're not really gonna have enough money to keep a ton of our free agents. I'm gonna let both running backs go. Aaron Jones is phenomenal, but he's gonna want more money than we're gonna be able to pay him.
Let me ask you something about that, GM. Are you happy with AJ Dillon, or is he going to be every down back? Or are you going to bring in somebody else to lighten the load a little bit for him?
I want him to be our every down back. He performed really well towards the end of the season, and he's bigger and he can catch passes out of the backfield. I want him to develop more chemistry with Rodgers because he was doing a lot of drills with Jordan Love.
Fair enough. Okay. So you're going to let Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams go, huh?
Yep, I'm gonna let both those running backs go. AJ Dillon showed a lot of promise. I want to bring back Allen Lazard. He did really well as the number 2, number 3 wide receiver, and Aaron Rodgers puts a lot of trust in him. And I'd like to bring back either Mercedes Lewis or Robert Tonyan. Robert Tonyan balled out this season, and both of them are safety blankets for Aaron Rodgers. And so,
but Tonyan, right? Because Mercedes Lewis is kind of old.
Mercedes Lewis has a lot of chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers was always going to him throughout the season. Like if Devontae and Lazard weren't open, Mercedes Lewis was getting the ball.
Fair enough. Okay.
And that was one of the problems in the end. I think it was either the first or second time that they played the Bucs is he was always being covered by Levante David. I don't think we're going to be able to get a deal with Corey Linsley done by the time the season starts. He wants too much money. So depending on how restructures worked, we might have to franchise tag him. And that's depending on what our draft boards look like, but that's not what we're talking about right now. I do have one person I want to go out and get in free agency is Jason Verrett to pair as either a number 2 with Zaire Alexander. And even he shined this year, but he has always had like an injury history.
He does.
You offer him a small 2-year deal.
Heavily incentive based, right?
Make sure he plays a certain amount of games in a season to make certain amount of money.
I
But-
like Jason Verrett. I thought he should have gotten some votes for comeback player of the year, even though he didn't get any. But it is what it is. I mean, to come back from the ACL injury like he did, and he balled out. Like, if anybody who came off an injury, I felt he had the best season of any of them. But proceed. I'm sorry.
He's really, with the lack of cap space we have and how close our team's been every single time, it's hard to just go out and sign people.
Let me ask you something, Mr. Packers GM.
I don't know
Packers-
my name. Sorry.
It's okay. I'll just call you Mr. Packers GM. The Packers were in on JJ Watt. Is that indicative that they want to bring in an edge rusher, or was it JJ Watt specifically something that he brought? So my question, I guess, is: are the Packers going to throw money at a different defensive end or pass rusher free agent?
Mr. Brian, I'm gonna butcher this. Gutekunst.
What'd you just call me?
Brian,
Gutekunst. I'm not gonna let you pronounce your name for me, sir. I'm not gonna
Brian
butcher
G.
your name.
Brian Gutekunst. Anyways, Brian, I'll just call you Brian. Are you going to bring in another pass rusher to help you out now that JJ Watt signed with Arizona? Or was that like I said, did you want something specific that he brought, like leadership? Or do you think they need do you think you need pass rush help?
I don't think we really need pass rush help. With our defense played pretty well, and it's not like we're really missing one part of the defense or another. Like, we don't have the best linebackers, but that can be said about almost every team in the NFL. Linebackers is pretty weak across the board.
Right.
So, like, if we were going to shore up something there, I think JJ Watt was being targeted because he's JJ Watt, and he was at one point the best defensive player in the league.
I'm gonna
And
say there is a plethora of defensive ends and pass rushers available. Later on in the video today, before we get off, I just want to touch on some of them as like a list as a whole, but there's a bunch of them available. That's why I was asking.
I feel like if you watch the games we lost, like most recent one is the NFC Championship because of recency bias, but like a lot of that was
Kevin King.
Kevin King getting burned just like on the final play before.
So he's on your free agent, so I assume you're going to let him go then.
Yeah, he's gonna go. That's why I want to bring in another corner.
Fair enough. Anything else that the Packers want to do? Like, what about that offensive line? You guys lost. Who's the other main staple? Not Bakhtiari, but the other guy. Brian
Corey
Balaga.
Lindsey.
No, Brian Balaga left last year. You didn't really feel that. I mean, Corey Lindsley. Are you guys going to bring in help for the offensive line?
Corey
Or?
Lindsey,
You
like
caught
I said
Ricky
earlier-
Wagner too.
Yeah, and they cut Ricky Wagner. That's right.
Corey Lindsey, like I said earlier, we're pretty far apart on money. So depending on what happens, we might have to tag him. And if we can't, then we're gonna have to figure out something in the draft. Our O-line did really well when Bakhtiari was on the field, but we kind of saw it in the NFC Championship. Bakhtiari's side just kind of got wrecked by Shaquille Barrett.
You did. Okay, so anybody have any questions for Mr. Brian, the Packers GM, before we let him off?
Yeah, would you trade Aaron Rodgers for Stephon Gilmore?
Hmm.
He didn't say no.
We do have Jordan. Wilkins.
So on that note, Mr. Green Bay Packers GM, so you have Aaron Rodgers on your roster. You have Jordan Love, who was your first round draft pick last year. Any chance that Jordan Love sees some playing time this season coming up?
No. Aaron Rodgers just won the MVP.
I don't think so either. I think this is a 2 or 3. I think this is a far Rodgers situation. 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. He's going to sit his
on
whole
that
rookie
note
contract.
then, after this season, Aaron Rodgers' cap hit or dead money hit drops quite a bit So is there any chance next year you guys attempt to move on and shed some salary with Rodgers and run with Jordan Love?
I don't see it unless Aaron Rodgers has like a significant amount of drop off. Like I just said, he was league MVP this year.
So I have a question. You guys are losing some talent on that offensive line, on that offense in the passing game. We're talking about tight ends, wide receivers if you don't re-sign them. Rodgers has clamored for better receivers, better weapons. Losing the running backs is going to hurt. What are you going to do on the offense to please him to take the next step?
So draft a first round talent. He keeps bitching about that. We don't really have a lot of money.
What about like a bargain receiver? There's a lot of good receivers available too.
I've looked at the bargain receivers, and I think just bringing back Lazard or Mercedes Lewis or Robert Tonyan would just be better because they already have the familiarity. And like I said, Robert Tonyan did play extremely well this year. Somehow Evan Ingram got the Pro Bowl selection over him, but he should have been a Pro Bowl tight end.
So you didn't think somebody like, I don't know, Will Fuller or something would help?
It depends on the price tag they want, because I think Will Fuller would get more money wanting to go to a different team.
Or like maybe T.Y. Hilton. I think he's going to take a discount.
I'd like to get T.Y. Hilton. It depends on who we bring back. If we can't bring back Mercedes Lewis or Robert Tonyan, then getting a T.Y. Hilton to help would be very good. But T.Y.
Okay.
Hilton isn't the T.Y. Hilton he was years ago.
Now, let's flip sides here. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. So they weren't very good in the linebacker spot, and they cut Christian Kirksey. I know he's on the free agent list, but they actually cut him. What are you guys gonna do at linebacker?
Watch our draft episode. You'll figure out.
Okay. But you're talking, see, you've mentioned the draft 3 or 4 times, Mr. Bryan. Are you going to find that much talent in the draft deeper in the later rounds?
5 linebackers who are mocked going in the first round, and they're not all going to go in the first round. They're all mocked as first round talent.
I mean, I've seen the mocks. So
here's the problem Green Bay has with bringing in high-priced free agents, and that is they're the only team in the league without a legitimate owner. They're owned by stockholders.
Yeah.
So they don't have the guy to make that decision. Okay, we'll overpay for this guy because it will push us over the top.
And they never really go big in free agency. I don't think I've seen them go huge.
Nope. A lot of the people who get massive paychecks are people that were already drafted or that came out of nowhere.
This Packers teams they just have more holes that I'm used to seeing. So I'm just asking, like, so we talked about the offensive line. You said you were going to do it in the draft. We talked about receiver. You said you might get one later, but
the real problem that came with the drafting decisions of last year didn't really impact us last season, but they're going to impact us this season.
Because you could have got a playmaker in the first round instead of Jordan Love.
Playmaker would have helped because we wouldn't have to bring back Mercedes Lewis, one of the tight ends or receivers I've talked about.
Right, because you would have gotten one
backer like Patrick Queen was available. So
right, it hurts, but all right. So we can start on another. Let's see. Looking at these lists, let's go with Mr. Rick there from the Vikings and give us a rundown of what you guys are going to look like and what moves you guys are going to make.
So we had a little bit of a disappointing season. The previous year we had a playoff caliber roster. We've had some playoff games over the last couple of years. We had a very memorable playoff appearance against the Saints where Stephon Diggs made quite the catch to help advance us to a game against the Saints. So we had a bit of a down year last year. Luckily, we don't have a ton of free agents on the roster. We do have an issue with salary cap. We're currently about $8.6 million over the cap, so there's going to be some cuts. Unfortunately, tight end Kyle Rudolph is probably going to be a casualty of that. Left tackle Riley Reef might also be. While Kyle Rudolph's a 5.1 million cap hit, Riley Reef will be about 11.8. So there's a big chunk of money that if we choose to move on from there, we can recoup and give us a little bit of room to make some moves in the off season. Harrison Smith could be another cap casualty, but we'll see. We do get nose tackle Michael Pierce back off the COVID opt-out list from last year, so hopefully that'll bolster a defensive line that definitely needs a little bit of improvement because both sides of our line were problematic at best. Unfortunately, as a team, we had some bright spots. Obviously, we have a very young, very, very solid running back in Dalvin Cook, who has been just absolutely phenomenal for us. And we did have a really good bright spot where I think it was one of the few win-win trades you see in the NFL, but we traded a elite receiver, Stephon Diggs, to the Bills, got their first round pick, but that first round pick turned into Justin Jefferson, who made arguments for offensive rookie of the year. So that ended up, obviously Diggs had a great year with Buffalo, but we had a great year out of Jefferson. So he helped Kirk Cousins have a great game, which is another question mark on our roster. So offensively, I think our biggest issue right now is offensive line. We have Adam Thielen, we have Justin Jefferson, we have Dalvin Cook. We have some weapons on the offensive side of the ball. We need an offensive line to protect Kirk Cousins. He showed he played some of his best football of his career towards the end of the season, but he's got to have protection. He's got to have a little bit of time to get rid of the ball when he's got to throw. Delvin needs a little bit more blocking up front to give him a little more windows to open up the running game for us.
So let's talk about that offense a little bit. So if they cut Kyle Rudolph, they're stuck with Irv Smith. He was their draft pick a couple of years ago. Do you think that he's a TE1? Do you think that he's going to be able to handle that role?
Ideally, we'd be able to go out and get somebody like a Jared Cook from the Saints. Somebody
5.1 million cap for Kyle Rudolph. I think Jared Cook's going to ask a little bit more than that, though.
Hopefully we could maybe get him for a little bit less. He is coming off a little bit of a down year. That Saints offense tends to spread the ball out, so statistically, Cook didn't have a phenomenal year. I think he's better than his numbers indicate, but just in the nature of the way Breeze tends to spread the ball out, no one guy tends to just dominate the stat sheet. So maybe we can sneak him in there for a little bit less. If we could, that'd be a good addition for us. Worst case, we hope that Irv Smith has a great year and makes a rebound. There's some question marks around him. He isn't an elite, top tier tight end in the eyes of many. We would love to see him elevate his game and kind of open some eyes across the league. That would be a backup plan for us. With some of the receivers we have in the running game, we have take that gamble at that position.
So Rick, let me get this out there. There's rumors flying around about Kirk Cousins being moved. He's a huge cap hit. Is that a possibility?
So Kirk's going to be our QB this year. Kirk's a big cap hit for us. So, just from a financial standpoint, Kirk's going to cost us a lot of money. If we were to try to move from him, Kirk was playing some of the best football of his career towards the end of the season last year. So no matter what moves we choose to make in the offseason, Kirk's going to be our guy this year. I know a lot of people are projecting us to try to make a move on the QB this year, develop them, and then move on from Kirk after this year. I'm not going to get into the logistics of whether we do that or not, but you guys will see Kirk Cousins under center in a Vikings uniform this season.
All right.
What about your kicker? Your kicker cost you 4 or 5 games throughout the season, and a lot of your games were very close. Are you going to try to get a new kicker?
So we're gonna treat that as an open competition. We're definitely gonna look at what's available. Obviously the draft is coming up. There's always some talent out there in the draft. We're gonna look at free agents. We're gonna give them a chance in the off season to kind of prove himself and see what he's got. We don't want to necessarily doom him right now, but that's definitely something that's on our radar. As you said, definitely a couple of games could have gone with a little better special teams play from the kicking game. So it's something that's on our radar, but we have a
Okay.
couple of other higher areas of priority that are going to be our initial push, but as I said, that's definitely going to be on the radar because there were some kicks that were definitely ones that we needed to have, and we weren't pleased with some of those results. So
Okay. So let's talk defense. Give us your strategy or needs defensively.
So we have some needs across the defensive side of the ball. I think our biggest one though falls on the defensive line. If we could get a little bit stronger up front, which getting Michael Pierce back should definitely help us a little bit. It's going to be a big body in on that line to help get some pressure. But we want to strengthen that defensive line, bolster that primarily. With that should help the rest of the defense by creating a little less time for QBs to have to throw, be able to get a little bit more pressure on the running game, start to maybe force some worse decision making from the offensive side of the ball for the opponents. So,
Okay.
there's
I
some
would
guys like
say.
Leonard. I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're talking about defensively. Go ahead.
So, I mean, guys like, depending what we can do with Sadler cap, if we can restructure a contract or two, Leonard Williams would be a huge boon. The Giants might tag him, but if he does hit the market, that would be a huge addition for us. Jarrell Casey is another option. He's going to be a little cheaper than Leonard Williams, so that could be an addition that would bolster us, but not be as bank breaking as Leonard Williams would be.
All right. So I happen to think that the worst part of the Vikings defense is the secondary, those corners. They got beat often last year. What are you going to do in that area?
So there's a couple of options. Patrick Peterson is a free agent out there that could be a target for us if we could bring a guy like that in.
He's not a free agent. They're rumored to be trading him.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Rumored to be trading, so that's a guy that we could try to reach out for. It could be a way to try to save some money too, depending if we were able to work a trade where we were able to shift a player that was a little higher on our cap. We could save a little bit of money while getting a upgrade on that secondary.
Do you think Patrick Peterson's still a CB1? Like, what are we going to do to start? Like, who's going to shadow the best receivers on the other team for you guys next year?
I mean, unfortunately that's going to depend. We do have, without getting into a ton of draft talk, because obviously, we're going to talk about the draft at a later point. We do have the draft. We do have some guys on the roster. We do have some free agents on our roster at the in the secondary. That we have Chris Jones. If we bring him back, that's another cornerback that we have. We do have some guys on the roster that we would like to see step up and play a little better. And we're hoping that, some of these guys, some more defensive line pressure would play a little bit better and would be able to step up and make that jump. So,
right. So at corner, they have like, who is it? Yeah, they drafted Gladney last year, and then they have Dantzler. I think they also drafted. They have Mike Hughes.
Yeah, they had two rookies as their starting.
That's right. It was Gladney and Dantzler. Yeah.
And they have that's the biggest learning curve in the NFL, I think, is the cornerback position. So.
They got smoked last year. Do you think they have to?
We're hoping that with those rookies coming in, they didn't have a training camp, they didn't have a preseason, they didn't have an off season at all last year. So we're hoping.
What about somebody like Richard Sherman, Josh Norman, some veteran to help them?
If we could get a guy like that at the right price, that'd be a huge boon in terms of you're getting a guy that, well, they might not be at their prime. They're still solid defenders, and they have a ton of experience that they could bring into our roster, especially with a young position that, as Mr. Pace has alluded to, is one of the harder learning curves to pick up. So that would be a huge boon in terms of teaching and bringing in a solid defensive player.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So you mentioned possibly cutting Harrison Smith, right? If you cut Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris is a free agent and George Iloka is a free agent, what are you guys going to do at safety? Those are your starting safeties and your backup.
So I think if we make that cut on Smith, then we make a more concerted effort to try to re-sign one of those guys. so we have some depth on the roster. Again, we do have the draft coming up. We do have, some choices there, which again, I'm not going to delve into that too much, but that's also another option we can look at to fill it. We can't be too, we'll look to free agency for everybody because we do
Right.
have some salary cap issues. So we are going to have to use the draft to fill some of our holes because we just don't have the money to go out there and be as aggressive as we would potentially like to in free agency this season.
Fair enough. So do you think that this team is a playoff team or will be competing for a playoff spot, or do you think you're a year or two away?
I think that if Justin Jefferson can continue to develop, our O line and D line can get a little bit better, I think we absolutely can compete. I think Detroit's going to have a little bit of a down year now. They clearly have made some moves to try to start to build up for the future. Chicago could be could struggle a little bit. They might have some questions at QB. They have a lot of free agents, so we'll see what they do. So if those two teams struggle, Green Bay is obviously going to be a big challenge. They're a very strong team. They've made the NFC Championship the last 2 seasons, but I think that we'll be able to compete for a wild card spot. If not, make a run on the division. If we get a little hot, we Dalvin Cook has had some success against Green Bay. We think
He has. What about? I'm just worried about that defense. I'm just worried. I mean, I like the linebackers. I like Anthony Barr. I like Eric Kendricks.
we're hoping that, especially with our secondary, which was one of our other weaknesses, we're hoping that with the offseason and the chance for these young guys to develop and have a full offseason and preseason, we're hoping that they make a big sophomore jump and look much better next year.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Spielman here?
I had one. I thought,
Dalvin Cook for Stephon Gilmore.
I appreciate the offer. I'm going to decline that trade. We are quite happy with Mr. Cook. He's been a very
But you
solid
need a
contributor.
second. That's all I heard Mr. Bradholm say. Stephon Gilmore, he's a secondary player. Dalvin Cook doesn't do that. Come on.
No, he doesn't.
Big brain.
No, but Stephon Gilmore doesn't run for 200 yards multiple times this season.
You guys should
He
draft a
doesn't.
quarterback in the first round.
So after we get done with the 4 teams, I just wanted to say again, I wanted to go through like some defensive end prospects that in free agency though, not the draft, but because there's a lot available, and I don't think people know of all of them because there's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Spielman, what's your thoughts on getting someone who knows the division? Super Bowl champion, Dominic, you know what I'm talking about.
Ndamukong Suh.
If we could find the right price tag, obviously, he has had a lot of success in the league. He's coming off of a Super Bowl victory with the Buccaneers. So if, we could get the right price, I'm afraid that he might want a little more than we can really afford to allocate at that spot right now, but he definitely has some familiarity. Obviously, he's played Chicago and Green Bay twice a season for a lot of years. He obviously played in Detroit, so he knows the Lions organization fairly well. So that could definitely be a boon for us. But again, it's all going to depend on what we can finagle and how we can move some money around to give us some leverage.
I also think they have nice pieces there. They did something really puzzling last year, though. See, they traded for Yannick Ngakoue, right, in the offseason. Then they traded him in the middle of the season away. What was that all about?
They wanted well, you can go on.
No, if you know the answer,
I
I don't know the answer. I'm looking.
If the Ravens made the playoffs, it became a second round, I believe.
So it's just for the pick.
Yeah, it was just for the pick because they were at the point where they were 0-4 or 1-5 or something. They knew they were out of the playoffs realistically.
so that and they weren't gonna get a long-term deal done with him, so turn around and get.
Well,
Pick
Baltimore
the-
didn't get one done either, right?
That's
Right.
So
But Baltimore was a contender and they needed that pass rusher too. So Minnesota wasn't anymore. So get something out of him while you can instead of maybe a 3rd round comp pick.
yeah, they got It became a second round, I believe, because they made the playoffs or he made the Pro Bowl or something like that.
Fair enough. So, what did Minnesota give away? Did they give away a third? What did they give away for him?
It was late.
It was a third or a fourth.
Yeah.
Something like that. But I like Yannick. He's another free agent in the group of defensive ends we'll talk about in a little bit. But he's really young too. He's still only 25 or 20. He's 26.
Yeah, he's very young. He's
a good pass rusher, but
the key part of what the Ravens will want to keep.
Now, as far as the Packers and Vikings, does anybody have a question for Mr. Brian, whatever the heck his last name is, or Mr. Rick before we move on?
So I think Mr. Rick was supposed to say something tonight, and he has not yet. I've been waiting for it.
You have a Lamborghini or something, don't you?
So I have a couple of Lamborghinis in my garage here. I think that as the season went out, I think there was definitely some opinions about how our team was, and we definitely struggled this year. Dalvin Cook has definitely been the centerpiece of our team, and definitely the namesake and the face of the team. If you want to talk, I think most fans of the NFL would recognize, whether they're Vikings fans or not, would recognize Dalvin Cook, but not a lot of other names on our roster, and we're looking to change that in the future. So.
That had nothing to do with Lamborghinis. Now I'm confused.
Right. It goes back to what I said earlier in the season when I called Dalvin Cook a Lamborghini in a trailer park, but I was trying to coax Warren into saying that he's just got too much.
He took a very GM approach, Lane.
GM's Warren's like the quintessential GM answers always.
Warren always gets like the QB controversies too. Like every episode, they're like, "Are you going to trade your quarterback?" And Warren's like,
I would like to say that in the next division, I will not have that issue.
They're all going to Miami.
No, I will not have to worry about that when I am GM of the Bengals, because my only question is going to be, how do I keep him upright?
Yes, how do you keep him healthy?
But that's not about trading him, so that's good.
You could trade him to a team that can keep
actually, I think the Bengals, not getting too far, I think their offensive line is actually much better now than it was when he got hurt. They added pieces.
It can't really be much worse than when he got hurt.
Yeah, they added that guy is dead, and then they're like, maybe
they added guard Quentin Spain after he got hurt. He played really well down the stretch.
Yeah, I can throw daggers now. I'm not quite through GM yet.
So I think the Bengals offensive line, they still need a piece or two, but I think they're better now than they were when he did get hurt. I could say that straight face. I wouldn't call him great.
We'll get to the AFC North on another time.
But the Vikings, their offensive line is slowly getting decimated too. Some injuries. They're getting rid of some players. The Packers and Vikings both need a new offensive line, it seems.
So do the Bears.
So do the Bears. So do the Lions. So
NFC North.
Just
between our four teams, I'm sure we can field the starting O-line.
I actually am not so sure about that.
Yeah, we could have like 2 or 3 quality centers.
Well, maybe not, because there's rumors that your center may be going to Miami.
All right, so who isn't going to Miami? You want Joe Burrow too?
Everybody's rumored to go to Miami because they have a lot of cap space.
Lamar Jackson and the Ravens aren't close. You want him?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, that's next week. We'll talk about that, Mr. Ravens GM.
I don't know my name either.
What's that?
I don't know the name of the Ravens GM.
I don't know it either. It just changed. It was Ozzie Newsome for a long time, and now it's somebody else. I don't know who it is. But
someone riding his coattails.
Somebody is riding his coattails. But the Ravens' offensive line is really good.
Yeah, they got some controversy brewing there too.
The Colts' offensive line is really good now too.
Quentin Nelson's a man of art.
He
watching
is
that
one of
man just destroy defensive tackles.
the best guards in the league. But yeah,
Thought we'd be cut off.
I can't even name 5 good linemen in the AFC North and NFC North. I can't even name 5 good ones.
I can't even name the center who like broke part
Corey
of his
Lindsley.
and kept playing.
I can name one.
I know Brian Balaga for the Packers.
David
but-
Bakhtiari, that's another one.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
all
It's
Packers.
Bakhtiari.